Good morning, Green Room. Well, we have a potential buy setup here in the Dow futures and in the Dow, of course, because it's going to mimic. Typically, this pattern on the daily time frame pulls back a third day before the turn happens. But this is going to be telling to see if buyers are willing to show up here after such a shallow retracement, because that's what typically happens near the end of a move. Now, we have somewhat of an assumption that this is the end of the move because of our market internals that we reviewed earlier in the week that gave us a sell signal last Friday, I think it was. So markets are down here a bit in the area of yesterday's low, looking at the futures here. And I think yesterday pre-market, I talked about this theoretical of a moving average that was resistance becoming support. It's very subjective. We do look for something like a 200 period moving average becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy because so many are looking at it. But we'll see. You see where it's resting here. It touched that, but the price support is right there to the left. So we'll see if this can turn green today by getting above its opening price, and then would be a retest of this high. Now, different stocks and markets got a pretty good shellacking yesterday from an intraday trading point of view. Some of the oil sector ETFs got wide range bars breaking down in those stocks. So some accidents, as they've called them, happening in different places. But through some of my scans last night, I did find some stocks that are incredibly strong and look like they can go much higher. Whether they can do that in a correcting market is another story, but we'll be taking a look at them. So now, here's the support. We'll see if we can get if it does turn today, or whether it comes down here to make a turn. However, it's going to happen. The assumption is as prices come into an area of support in an uptrend, even in a shallow retracement, buyers are going to show up there. That's just technical analysis 101. I don't care what your reference point is as far as a moving average, a fib number, a channel, a Bollinger Band, or any other type of whatever it's going to be. You see some support there and it's in an uptrend. Expect buyers to show up. And you can see the little congestion right there. We spoke about that yesterday, and as prices came down, buyers showed up and it popped up a little bit. And now we're getting a retest pattern here where when prices make a sharp drop down, we talked about this actually from the reverse side yesterday on the intraday charts because they came down hard and looking for M-tops in downtrends. So here we had this move down. There is some support. Now, this is what we call creating support, and this is a retest. The question is, can it now push up and retest the highs here and turn this into a green bar? Or we'll probably know after about 30 minutes of trading if this goes sideways here for a while and cannot retrace up here. That's going to open up the door to the void below. So that's what we need to look for here Friday morning to see what the reaction is. This retest here, can it get prices going higher? Or when it tries, and it is trying right now, it is trying because you can see those bars turn green over here and they're trying to hold. Can they try to get up here? Or if they go sideways over time, it tells us that sellers continue to be in control from yesterday, and it opens up the door to a move lower. We'll see how that plays out. Now, the probability of this either turning into an M-top or just continuing to go down, I still expect there to be some attempt to buy this level aggressively to see if they can make the turn here. But in any event, looking at the weekly time frame, we see that, and again, we're assuming where this might close by the end of the day by some miracle that Mr. Schizophrenic, as we call the broader markets lately, can turn this into a big green bar. Well, that certainly changes things. Whereas if it ends like this, or even ends by closing below the opening price, which would mean it's got to go below last week's open, and we get a red topping tail bar, well, that really opens up the probability, a high one, that prices will start to correct and pull back within the next week or two. So that's where we're keeping an eye on to see, where today ends, and then obviously where things go next week. But lower highs, lower lows, pretty decent retracement. We're in an area where prices should turn. Our market internals are telling us the same thing, that they're in alignment there. So we need to see at least a break of a prior week's low and close below it, of course, but a break of a prior week's low is a beginning, which hasn't happened since the move began as we look at these futures. So we look at other markets and see, what they're telling us. And guess we can just leave this over here so we can look at all of this at the same time, which is good. Looking at the S&Ps, what we do is we compare one market to another. And over here, we've got a red candle within a downtrend after breaking above the prior week's high. So we'll get a sell setup at the end of the week, assuming it's like this. And then does it break last week's low? Well, this week's low next week. So we'll see. Buyers trying to hold it here. A little stabilization. We'll see how they do once the market opens. And it's a little further away from the support here in the S&Ps, but below the 200-day moving average. This would be the area where buyers will or should show up aggressively. That you can see the support there is quite obvious. And so we'll see that happens there. The Qs below the 200-day as well, and coming into this support. And look, this is actually breaking here. Now, that's a good sign from the bearish point of view. However, and I know how these things act. That's bearish, no doubt. And if we were short this now, we're saying, okay, start accelerating lower. But this instrument is notorious for breaking support and coming right back in the face of traders and chopping them up. I don't know that that's going to happen, but it's something to be aware of and keep an eye on if you're trading Qs, spiders, or these futures contracts. That said, that topping tail, which we have here, and it's a bigger one, the depth of retracement was larger in the NASDAQ. So that leads us to believe, we had this conversation in the room multiple times, the depth of retracement here is more suggestive of making a higher low on a correction versus coming down to the low. But we'll see how that all plays out when and if we get there. Like I said, this is coming down to a point where buyers will want to step up just because the daily is trending higher. Bonds moving up, so now, it's interesting. Yeah. As the markets were going, as they began to correct, there was these fears that were emerging of an inverted yield curve. Never inverted. So now, and there was these fears of China trade wars and tariffs and so on and so forth. All of that was being alleviated, and everybody was playing nice, and things were great as the market was going up over the last month or so. So now, as yesterday, all of a sudden, there's trade war worries. Yet they haven't started to talk about the inverted yield curve. So with bonds moving up, which means yields are moving down, if this continues to move up, by next week, we're going to start hearing yield curve concerns. And that is all going to play into the correction that is most likely coming because our internals have given us a sell signal last week. The weekly time frames are in downtrends. We're getting topping tail type of bars today. And now you'll see how the news begins to play into the technicals, which gave us a heads up before they started their banter in the media. Oil pull back there, sitting on support, buyers beginning to step up, but you can see the weekly chart here getting a big reversal, which is going to bring in more sellers to try and push it lower. So we'll see what happens there. We always have two scenarios here at Master Trader because we have to be objective. And even when we have a bias, we have tools that force us to change our minds if the information changes. So the information changing would be if this doesn't follow through. Right now, we've got a sell setup and a downtrend. If by next week, the next bar was a big green one closing up here, it would be foolish to be thinking sell. This would lead us to be thinking measured, move higher. I don't know that that's going to happen, but we always have a second scenario of if this, then that. Right? We kind of talked about trading and the technicals yesterday in the room as to the thought process of using our technical concepts to guide us and as to what's happening. And, looking at multiple time frames like this, we put that all together to put the odds in our favor. So with this sell setup and the daily trying to make a buy setup here at support, what should happen is if it tries to go up, it should fail and go down. And then this just follow through to the next red bar. We'll see what happens. Gold kind of moving up here, pulling back. And we'll see if this turns into an M top. That's a relatively shallow pullback, getting a little extended there on the weeklies. So we'll see what happens. It's at some resistance here on the 60-minute. So sellers coming in at that point. We'll see what they can do. Other than that, Dan will look at a few things. And, the headline and the big headline in the news is Jeff Bezos being blackmailed for who knows what kind of picture the richest man in the world takes of himself, but everyone's sitting on their edge of their seat waiting to see. I'm sure he's got a very fine camera. In any event, Amazon's down here a little bit pre-market, 25 points or so. And I mentioned in the letter the fact that this was a sell setup in Monday's letter, that this was a sell setup on the weekly time frame, and that could be an additional heads up as to a correction within the market, which had not really formed a topping tail as of the end of that last week. So we'll see how it all plays out, and we look for our setups and trade them accordingly. All yours, Dan.
All right. Hey, good morning, folks. But just as I'm loading this up, hey, Greg, some folks are having trouble downloading that ebook.
Yes. We'll get on that.
Okay. All righty. Hey, Chris, everyone else. Yeah, we had a fun little coaching session yesterday on options. Chris was there, others. Hey, Pam, good morning. I haven't seen you in a while. I was just looking at this chart here. It's for a seminar that I'm doing tomorrow on swing trading. And I remember doing I got to go back in time. Look at this. I remember doing a chart on the power of a downtrend. And I did the chart lesson when it was like $30. And I said, this thing's still going lower. And look at it, less than a penny now. That is crazy. Opens, tandem. Covered call, we've rolled him, he's fine. Weight Watchers, we have a covered put, he looks great for lower prices. Whirlpool, we have a covered call holding up pretty well in yesterday's weakness. LVS, we have a way out of the money put, that looks fine. KSS, call spread, fine. X, covered call, we're gonna not roll, we're gonna let today's expire because it's 623. And sell another one for next Friday. Urban Cowboy, kind of the opposite. We talked about this in coaching, what a covered put is. It's the opposite of a covered call. We're short stock, short a put when momentum stalls. We shorted the 31s the other day for 50 cents, so that improved our cost basis. And If it remains weak, we're going to hold it to short stock. And if it continues stronger, we're going to sell another put for next week. Costco, we have a call spread. That's fine. Mr. T, we're short stock. That's fine. Google, bear call spread. Goldman Sachs, short stock with a break even. So all our, oh, I missed Zulu Sierra. We have a put spread and a covered call. So that's fine. Yeah, hey Cliff, we definitely recorded it. Gustavo's Flyman is out west. You're sitting in seat 7 Foxtrot. Gappers, let's go. 9 minutes for gappers, 33.40. And I don't know if this one's earnings or not. Bullish gap, but far from the MAs. We gotta keep an eye on it. 118. Wow, is that the all-time highs? Sure is. That's bullish, but excessive for a gap trade. HLF, I just read about this in the journal. Apparently that's what its troubles were yesterday. The CEO is in trouble for something or other. And I don't care what he's in trouble for. I just want to see if there's a tradable opportunity. And that's a short on a bounce. This guy we've been watching, he's volatile. 20, gapping down a little bit. That just looks like high risk and you can only day trade it. Cuervo Gold, 61 and change, way down here, very bearish gap, but that's a 10% gap. I don't know what to do with that. We got to wait. Mike Tango, 22 and change, way down here. None of these are like tier 1, which means it looks fantastic and we're going to stalk it at the open. 18 and change, no interest. There's no price void. SIBO, 95 bucks, nope, no pattern. Cliff Clavin, 1150. It's a bullish gap on the daily, but notice on the weekly now, it's extended, and that's not a tier 1 setup. 95. This one, it's right there to resistance, but if this can take out a 30-minute high, there's room to the upside. I'll put that in a little window here. CCJ, I don't see where it's gapping, but look at this beautiful weekly. That's a beautiful weekly. It's kind of a reverse head and shoulders looking thing. You got your head here, you got your shoulder, and it broke out. That looks good. I'm going to put that in a window. Skechers SKX 33 and change. It's excessive, but on the monthly, this is a 2-bar shakeout on the monthly. But this might take a week or 2 to set up on a pullback, similar to Snap. I'll show you in a second. 37.48. Ooh, it's an ugly gap, but excessive. TMUS. I thought TMUS earnings was yesterday. It's in a trading range. Nothing to do there. Actually, it might turn into a condor if it can't do anything. 88.70. Yeah, these toy companies. One's no pattern there. Mattel is up. 14.68. And it's a bullish gap. It's too big. FTV, I can't. There's no volume. That was a question yesterday. Do I look at volume on pre-market patterns? And I said, absolutely. There's no pattern here. There's one little tick, which I don't know if it's real. When I look at pre-market patterns, look, here's Apple. I want real bars, a real pattern. Expedia, almost one. Hey, here's a gap and crap candidate. That's a big old gap, right? Think about it. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 green bars into earnings. Now you're gapping up big. The odds are a blow off top. So that's a great trade. And it's on since it's earnings, volatility is going to be high. So this is a fantastic call selling candidate. So that looks great. Cody, 875, bullish gap, but I need a pullback. Hey, Michael just joined us. If everyone can move your drop down to all panelists and attendees. Now I'm at the leftovers here, but Tapestry, the monthly, if this goes sideways and can't bounce, the monthly has room to fall. Yum, we mentioned this as another gap down negated, but it's right at resistance. Grub, I posted as a watch in our weekly trader, gap down negated, bullish weekly, bullish monthly. If this can just churn and go sideways, it's a put selling candidate for next week, but it's also a put selling candidate for today. If we can maybe get some juice for the 80s, I would do that, but that's step one. Step two is it has to set up. This is the opposite of the bullish gap that bearish. I'm sorry, the bearish gap that bullies. I'll do a screenshot on that later. It is a bullish gap, fills the gap in 30 minutes. That's bearish. So if you get a price void to the downside, that's a short. This was a bullish gap yesterday. iRobot, I'll keep an eye on it. It's bullish all time frames for a put spread candidate. CMG, same. It might take a few days to set up. The old boot. What do you think about the old boot, trader? Yeah, it's a 1, 2, 3. It's a 1, 2, 3 from consolidation. I love it. Putting it in a window. These are all snap. This was the one I said on the weekly. Reverse head and shoulders breakout. Let it set up for a week or a couple of days, whatever. Oh, Debbie, here's yours if you're in the house. Your BSX is a 1, 2, 3 also. It's at the high end of the range on the weekly, but it's still strong. So I see, I'm pruning right now. I'm just going through, cutting out stuff I don't want to look at. And I leave the things that still have potential to set up. This was a bearish pro gap. It's right at 50% retracement. As long as it can't retrace any further, I'm going to keep it on my short watch list. Rost, still going sideways, but holding relative strength. Mondelez, I still like relative strength. It looks great. Put that in a window. Marijuana, this was one I said looked higher for a day trade. Cron with a beautiful engulfing bar. What's old gas doing? Look at that. Look at record winter cold, and this thing's breaking to new lows. Yeah, Gustavo, we're gonna have to give him a few minutes because he's typically pretty spreading. XOP, I'm watching this as a short. All right, look, EXPE.